What is up, everybody, and welcome to a new edition and a new show called the Pattison Ave Sports Show. I'm your host, James Scorza, and with me, as always, is a group of companions on this very important Saturday. Joey Marks on this very important Saturday. Good morning, Joe.
Good morning, James. Welcome, Philadelphia. And with us, we have our great friend, the wisdom, the man, the myth, the legend, the icon, Frank Finnegan. Good morning, Frank.
Good
Good
morning,
morning,
Frank.
gentlemen, and happy holiday weekend. I hope you all had plenty of turkey to stuff down your gullets.
Yep,
I,
absolutely. And before we go any further, Mitch Kovsky joins us and says good morning to us. What's going on, Mitch Kovsky? Like Mitch Kov, like Matthew Mitch Kov. Is it no?
Stop reaching. Stop reaching. We know you want that to work.
yeah,
I
So
know,
does he.
I know. I'm sorry.
you'll have
Reach it
plenty of
already.
opportunity, James. Trust me, you'll have plenty of opportunity.
Believe me, I
Yeah.
know. Yeah, I know.
And if
All right.
you want to give James more opportunities, tune in for James Scorza tonight with the Flyers pregame show.
Yes, sir. Like we always say, and he says it works for me too. I said, yep. But hey, look, hey, buddy, hey, that's his name. And but before we go any further, we want to thank our sponsors for this very important program. Our friends over at Sports Memorabilia, RallyHouse.com, and Ticket Network. But Joe, there's a lot to get to on this very important Saturday. So simply put, on a new network, where do we begin?
Well, we're gonna begin with a couple announcements first off. So I want to welcome everybody in and settle in. Grab your coffee, grab your bagel, grab your croissants or whatever. Um, you might not be too familiar with Hardcore Sports Network, but we
Mhm.
have been a big fan of this network for a bit, and we know the founder, Mitch Kopsky, and as much as he wants to be a Flyer superstar, he just settles to be a co-founder of the Hardcore Sports Network,
Mhm.
HSN. It's not the home shopping network, but it's only fitting that in Philadelphia we go hardcore with
Mhm.
our sports because
Yep.
we're hardcore fanatics about it all the time. We want to send a gracious and very open-ended thank you to the Edge of Philly Sports Network and all those guys over there,
Mhm.
Al Safiri, Joey Sheeran,
Tip of the
Fred
hat.
Burns. We want to thank you for everything you did for us, everything you did to build that brand, everything you did for Philly sports. And I've said this to each one of you guys, never say never. And you know, the best part of a story is the rebirth story. So we look forward to the other end and the next chapter that's to come. So we want to wish a uh, good wishes to them and a gracious thank you to them for having us on their network.
I
Very well said, brother.
I have every reason to believe that they will rise like a
Yep,
phoenix in the ashes.
Yeah,
absolutely,
for sure.
absolutely.
For sure.
We want to also thank Mitch Kovsky and the Hardcore Sports Network for welcoming us in with open arms. This is a new show, a new era, and with new sponsors and new life, but the same old great debates. But before we get into those debates, I have to fall on my sword a little bit, and this puts a bit of a pause in some of the announcements, but Frank Finnegan is the wisdom for a reason. And he's the wisdom for a reason because he sees things in a very open-minded way. And
Macro.
sometimes,
Look at everything macro, not micro.
yeah. And
Mhm.
so a couple things that he had said to me uh, on this show that have made a lot of sense, but at the time I kind of dismissed them was
Mhm.
Saquon Barkley.
Yep.
And the fact that Saquon Barkley was going to be one of the best acquisitions the Philadelphia Eagles have ever had.
I
And
did say that.
yeah, you did. And I kind of poo-pooed it because I basically thought he had no tread left on his tires.
Yeah, 'cause
Well,
a lot of injuries. You know,
I
understand. Understandable.
I was wrong because I also called him a finesse back, and clearly he's not just a finesse back.
Yeah.
That's one thing, and the other thing is that Frank was also right about is that Joel Embiid and the Sixers are a ticking time bomb, and
Mhm.
that was spot on. Especially, and people might think, well, how did he guess that? I mean, everyone knows that. No, Frank knew that about 6 to 8 months ago,
Yeah.
and it's like I said, he sees things in a foresight that not all of us can see. No pun intended. But the idea that Frank, you were right. I bow to your wisdom.
Look,
Um,
I'm not out for accolades, Joe. I just reflect on what I see. I
Yeah.
mean,
okay, enough with the
thank you,
fluffing of
thank you.
Frank Finnegan because
I appreciate it.
we're hardcore sports network, not a different kind of hardcore. So let's move along. We are going to start with those Philadelphia 76ers because there's a lot of things that have transpired since the last time we've been on air. And
Oh,
I
yeah.
think we got to air some dirty laundry. Um,
Yes, we do.
I got to ask the question first and foremost. The biggest topic that's on the tips of every Sixers fan mouth right now is Joel Embiid and his attitude to playing basketball, his attitude towards the Sixers. Frank Finnegan, I'm going to start with you. What's your impression
Okay.
of Joel Embiid's behavior?
Okay. I'm going to go back into the Wayback Machine
Okay.
and use a Phillies moment to describe what I'm feeling.
Okay.
After the Phillies were in the World Series in '83, shortly after that, they lost their ace pitchers and needed an ace pitcher. And Jack Morris was available, who was the winningest pitcher at the beginning of the '80s. And he came in town for an interview, and he left town without a contract. And Bill Giles had a press conference that aired on all three television networks at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. They cut all feeds for news and went right to this press conference, and everybody thought they were going to sign Jack Morris. And Bill Giles stood there and said, we're not going to pay a guy $3 million a year to play once a week. So we are not signing Jack Morris. At the time, at that very moment, I was a season ticket holder, a 14-year season ticket holder for the Phillies. And I turned around to my mother and I said, Mom, not buying the season tickets anymore. And I boycotted the Phillies until 2008. I did not buy one ticket. I did not go to one game. I did not watch them on television. I said at the time to my mother, they don't care about us as fans. They only care about themselves and their money. And I said, they're not getting another dime of my money until I see a reasonable change in their attitude. And because of that, when they went through the 2008 season and won the World Series, I punished myself by saying, okay, I put myself in this position of boycotting, and I'm not going to come here now and jump on the bandwagon and say I've always been a fan. So I said, okay, this year I can't take any claim for what happened, but I will be a fan from this point on. And they've done me well. I mean, Middleton has been a great owner. This is a similar situation that's happening with the Sixers. That when they started the process after the Larry Brown era, I thought, okay, this is what the Sixers need to do to get themselves on the winning footage. It's the only way you can turn the franchise around is get to the bottom, get the draft picks, get to the top. And the Sixers went like on steroids with this program. And I didn't like the fact that they were losing on purpose, but they really weren't. They just didn't have the players. They didn't put the players on the court to win in the NBA. And it was obvious, and the league hated it. And the Sixers got lots of draft picks out of this. And among those draft picks were Embiid and a player who shall not be named, who's no longer here and still doesn't play, who we all loved. We all thought that pick was the great pick. But now the Sixers have done something to the fans because they want to build a stadium for themselves that I believe is completely it's fan malfeasance, and it's complete and utter disrespect to the fan base that gave them the latitude to do what they are doing now. And I will never watch another Sixers game, and I will never go to a Sixers game until that moron that's the owner is gone. I am done with the 76ers, and I don't think they deserve any time to be spoken about on any sports network in Philadelphia. They shouldn't be fed into because they are practicing malfeasance as a sports organization. And that's my position on that, Joe. And I know that bothers you because I know you're a big Sixers fan, but they have played us all, and they are playing us all for money. And they're going to build something that is horrible in a place that is horribly located for a situation like that. And the only reason they signed Embiid was so they can put asses in those seats.
Yep. Well, I won't disagree with you, but before I go into my take on that, I'm going to give James the floor to talk about, because he's had some emboldened opinions about Joel Embiid in the last couple months. So I'm going to let James give me his take on
Embiid is a symptom. He's not a cause.
Embiid
is a symptom.
Right. I agree with that, but here's the other part of this. Well, first, James, what's your take on Joel Embiid?
Well, I mean, it's the one thing I'm very, very annoyed about, and I guess the one thing that everybody, I mean, at first, I mean, I've been listening to radio a lot about what the circumstance of Joel Embiid's presence on the court, and also what he's been doing off the court, and what everybody's been trying to show what he's capable of. The one thing I'm really, I wouldn't say I'm upset about it, but I'm really, really just like intrigued by it, because he really was becoming a great player. Obviously, the last couple of years haven't been great for him, and I think that's the one thing that really shocks me more than anything about what the real situation is, because he won the MVP back in 2023. I'm thinking, okay, this is where he will find his footing, and he knows knows the tools how to win now because he won the MVP, similar to Allen Iverson did in 2001.
Right.
So for me, the one thing I was really pissed off about is that the last couple years with Embiid was really it felt like the same old song and dance with the second round exits, and after second round exits after second round exits. The sad part about that I am upset about is that we people as media want to hear real stories about what's been going on. And look, I mean, the Marcus Hayes situation with him and Embiid, I mean, both sides were wrong on this. I think the way to handle it, but shoving a reporter is not the way to go here in Philadelphia, too, especially on a top media site like it is. But the only thing I'm really pissed off about the most is that now all of a sudden he's becoming a passive aggressive a-hole, that he's saying, oh, everybody's pointing the finger at me, whoa, it's me, the whole 9 yards, and think he's an innocent victim. I'm he's Sergeant Schultz and Hogan's Heroes. I see nothing, I know nothing. But the sad part about it is that I'm really upset about is that now all of a sudden he don't even care about winning anymore. And I'm at the point now that if you want to go elsewhere and try to, we should have known about this about a few years ago when this first came out, when he said that, I would win a championship here or somewhere else. That should have triggered alarms right then and there and said, okay, this guy don't want to be here anymore. And that's when I start to lose interest.
I got to say something, James.
Sure.
I don't particularly care for Marcus Hayes. I don't. I've had several conversations with him on and off the air.
Sure.
He's a very pompous guy. However, I have to give Marcus Hayes this. Marcus Hayes he pursues the truth. Okay?
He does.
He doesn't manufacture things. He doesn't manufacture his stories. I don't care for his style, but he doesn't make things up. And the reason Joel Embiid pushed him was because Marcus Hayes was asking questions that Joel Embiid or the organization didn't want answered, and he wouldn't stop.
Right.
Okay. So yes, he was being tenacious. He was being who Marcus Hayes is.
Sure.
And Joel Embiid couldn't avoid the questions anymore. So instead, he escalated the situation. And this gets back to what I was talking about, that the organization has lied to us about Joel Embiid's condition of health.
Right.
Because Joel Embiid is never going to be able to play at an MVP level ever again. Okay. And they won't disclose that to us because they know what it means. It means they can't sell tickets.
Right.
Okay. That's exactly what it comes down to.
Right.
He's never going to be able to play on that knee. And to put it in Hugh Douglas's terms, he has a crunchy knee.
Right. Good point, right?
It's not peanut butter, but it's crunchy.
It's crunchy.
Well, I mean, here's the other thing too, is that the one thing I was really intrigued about too. But before we go any further, we got some comments chiming in. Charles Adderley checks in and says, "Good morning. Enjoy on all the live streams just to stop by and just support my show and smash that like button. Thank you for that." And also he's like, I guess he's giving you and Frank and I shout outs too. So that's a powerful this is powerful indeed. So thank you for that, Charles. I really do appreciate it. We really do appreciate your chiming in. But no, I mean, I agree with what you're saying right on point, Frank. Like the one thing I was really pissed off about, that I really thought that Embiid would look at this and say, okay, how can I get back to normal, get to my normal bias here? And he's from Nassau, from the Bahamas. Okay. He's checking in from the Bahamas. Okay, I see
nice
it.
Weather
Charles.
down there.
Yeah,
nice weather indeed, buddy. Hopefully, yeah. I think we all need a vacation right now.
Hey, we can do the show remote. So
oh hell yeah! We need some toots and whistles, and we'll be all good, man.
Drink some Click beer. We'll come down and drink some Click beer.
Yeah, right.
But I'm gonna. This is what I'm gonna say. So I am a Sixers fan. Yeah. I do agree with what Frank's saying though, because there's a part of this that Joel Embiid is kind of the result of the negligence and the mismanagement of this organization. I mean, we could go backwards a little bit, and there was a conversation that we had that at the end of Brett Brown's tenure, and I kept saying, everyone kept wanting Brett Brown's head, and I'm like, okay, and who are you going to bring in? And everyone thought it was Doc Rivers, and Doc Rivers was the answer. And some people were like, well, we just hired the guy that lost a playoff series when he was up 3-1. So that problem. But then there were other people that were celebrating it because he has a championship and he's Doc Rivers and he's like the 5th winningest coach in NBA history. And it's like, okay, but is he the solution? No. He's what Frank is basically saying. He was a name to sell more tickets. Exactly. He was a name to appease the audience. He was a name to check a box, and that was it. When you looked at Joel Embiid, the whole reason why the centerpiece of this team was always Joel Embiid, because it was a fan favorite popularity contest.
Yep.
And the ownership knew, we don't have to keep this guy around because he's a talent. We don't have to keep this guy around to nurture his legacy. We have to keep this guy around because he's putting money in our pockets.
Exactly.
And I have to say, I feel bad for Joel in some ways, because I feel like,
he's not well. He's not well.
But here's the other part. And God, I'm gonna bite my tongue when I say this. I feel bad for any former player that in the last 5 to 10 years, played with this team, and that includes the bum in Brooklyn, because perhaps this organization spoiled a lot of apples that could have flourished into really prosperous stars. And
That's why I worry about Maxey.
and
Yeah.
I don't disagree
Yeah.
with you.
I agree.
You'll know it's gone south for Maxey when he doesn't smile on the court anymore.
Yeah.
Right.
When the joy is gone from that kid's heart,
Yeah.
that's when you'll know. That's when you'll know, because right now he still plays with joy.
And I mean, like that's the thing though. You know, I have to really ask, like, the point. I get that it's a business. Like, I get that, but
you can
do
still
you have to treat it with so much irresponsible notion? Like, don't you have a responsibility?
Joe, when you really get down to brass tacks and think about it, this team is being run like a hedge fund.
Right.
Gee, that's funny because the guy that owns the team runs a hedge fund. So,
Right.
So I mean, he's just reducing. I mean, the Washington Commanders are going to go through the same thing. I mean, if the Washington Commanders fan base think that this is going to turn their team around, it's not. It's not. He's going to do what's necessary to A, get a new stadium, B, make them a semi-relevant team. He won't do what he has to do to put them over the top, you know, even though that is it's where he's from as a fan, but that's not going to matter to him. When he starts counting beans the way he always counts beans, he's going to make decisions on beans, not on fans.
Yeah.
And I mean, he did it with the Sixers. He did it. He's done it to the New Jersey Devils.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, there's things that the Sixers need they're not going to get, and we're back to being relegated to mediocrity for the next 10 years.
Lady Flop checks in and says good morning to us. It says, I'm so excited. Well, I guess she's a wrestling fan. It says, I'm excited for WWE Survivor Series pay-per-view tonight. That sounds like fun. I mean,
yeah.
You can relate, Joe. You're a big wrestling fan, right?
Let's put 6 jerseys on all those people and see who comes out alive.
Let's do that with the ownership group for all the Philly sports teams. And
not all of them.
Yeah,
the Phillies,
little by little.
And the Eagles, the Phillies and the Eagles are doing it right.
Yeah.
Oh, I know, but I still think like Jeffrey Lurie might have do a Ric Flair and like poke someone in the eye or something.
No,
someone's gonna get pedigree too.
I got to be honest. I think Jeffrey Lurie has fully trusted Howie Roseman.
Yeah.
Much to Matty.
As well as should. Philly
halftime checks in and says, "Good morning, gentlemen. Good morning, Philly.
Good morning, Philly."
And Mitch Kopsky says we'll be streaming the WWE Survivor Series tonight on the Hardcore Sports Network. Cool.
Good
There we go.
All right. So you got wall-to-wall sports today on the Hardcore Sports Network, the new home of the Pattison Ave Sports Show. And just like I said, we have new sponsors. And speaking of those, let's bring up our first new sponsor, the sportsmemorabilia.com. Ladies and gents, if holidays are here, Black Friday was yesterday, Cyber Monday's coming up. If you have that person in your life that you're looking for that great sports gift, go to sportsmemorabilia.com right now because there are sales going on galore. You could find anything from autographed memorabilia to prized moments captured in framed products. Listen, go to sportsmemorabilia.com where moments are forever. You can go right now by scanning that QR code and going to the Philly Sports Memorabilia page where you can find anything Philly sports oriented in sports memorabilia. Anything autographed, anything captured, you can find it there. Scan that QR code and go to sportsmemorabilia.com today. It is the holiday season, ringing in with some awesome collectibles to add to your collection right now.
So you could
that's cool, man.
Joe. So you could scan that code, and for Christmas get me a Reggie White autograph something or other? Because I know you
Yes, I
would do
can.
that for me. Yeah,
Yes,
you would
I
do
could.
that for me.
Yeah,
That's
yes,
rad.
yes, I
That'd
would.
be
So
rad.
why don't you be Santa Claus and get me something Reggie White? I'd love it for you.
There you go. Before we go any further, Charles checks in, says weather in Nassau, Bahamas, 79 degrees and expected to go down to 68. Winds from the east at 10 miles per hour. Sunny skies, no rain in the forecast.
All right, Charles, that's enough out of you. It's like 20 degrees
Cheap
here.
meteorologist Charles.
We'll be there in 2 hours, Charles. Relax.
Yeah,
We'll be there in 2 hours.
sunny and
Way to make us
75,
feel
right?
great, Charles.
Yeah. But so we're gonna switch to, like Frank said, the organization that's doing it right in Philly right now, the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yes,
And
sir.
wow,
Yeah.
have these guys lit
Nothing
the
to
world
talk about
on
here.
fire?
Nothing to talk about here.
So I'm going to start with you, Frank. Do you have the Eagles in your mind? We all did predictions in the beginning of the season. I had 12 wins. I think James had 11 or 12 wins, and I believe you had maybe 11 or 12 wins.
I had 12 wins. I had 12 wins. But
So,
I put a caveat on that, if you remember correctly.
yes.
I said the Eagles were set up to win if they could get their defense straightened out.
Woo, did they?
Okay, and
did they
I
ever?
said that back at the beginning of the season. I said if they can get their defense straightened out, they're going to be very, very tough to beat.
Yeah.
And
don't turn me into Pat Bernard quite yet, because I like the defense. Like, don't turn me into Pat Bernard quite yet. All right. So let's go into this. Have the Eagles exceeded your expectations for this season up to this point?
I'll tell you what's exceeded my expectations. I mean, usually this doesn't happen. But they have 2 rookies there's 3 people who have completely changed the dynamics of this team. 4 people. It's Jalen Carter, because he's become the reincarnation of my. When they start moving him around the line, he's going to be the next Reggie White. Because I see a lot of Reggie White. I see a lot of Reggie White in him.
Nice.
Saquon Barkley, for obvious reasons, but I kind of saw this coming with Saquon, and Cooper DeJean, and Quinyon. Those 2 kids have completely transformed the mental aspect of what's going on defensively on this field. And, I mean, they've changed the dynamic on how they're playing. And I mean, kudos to Fangio for recognizing this and trusting those kids to play, because no defensive coordinator before in the last 8 years would play rookies like this. They just wouldn't. They wouldn't trust the cornerback position to a rookie. And this kid, like I'm sorry, you can't throw to his side of the field. You just can't.
Right.
I mean, how many rookies coming in the league as cornerbacks have done that? Even Diggs in Dallas, who was an outstanding cornerback, his problem was, though, he would get the interceptions, but he was also one of the biggest. He gave up the most yards.
Yep.
So, but this isn't happening with Quinyon. This is like, we can't throw there. I mean, he has shut down some of the best wideouts in football.
Amazing.
It's ridiculous.
I've
It's
made
ridiculous.
this comparison to Quinyon, and you've already thrown out a big name with Jalen Carter and the comp to Reggie White. But I'm going to make a comp to Quinyon Mitchell from what I've seen so far. He's Deion Sanders. He shuts down half the field.
Yeah.
He does not let, like, people. There was a conversation that Quinyon probably is not going to look sexy on paper because he doesn't get the stats. But if people remember correctly, Deion, when he kind of started, didn't get those sexy stats either, because they decided they were not going to throw at Deion's side.
Right.
So in some way, not having those stats is even better, because it's telling to, as a whole, that the quarterback does not want to even trust that receiver of theirs. on Quignon's side. And so if Quignon can take away one big asset from the opposing team, that makes a big difference going forward in a game. And especially if like you face a team that only may have one good receiving weapon. You put Quignon on him and all of a sudden that stymies that opposing offense.
Look, the Rams have two excellent wide receivers.
Yes.
Excellent.
Yes.
And Quignon shut them down.
Yes.
And so did Cooper DeJean.
Yeah.
I mean, made them absolutely pedestrian. Absolutely pedestrian. He did it to Jamar Chase. He did it to Adam Thielen.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you go back and look at those stats, and you're not hearing his name called at all. But
Right.
what you're seeing in the stats is the best wide receiver, the best vertical option that opposing teams that have had against us this year has
Right.
been relegated to irrelevance
Right.
because of that kid. They have to figure out other ways to beat you,
Yep.
and they don't have any other ways to beat you. You know, that's what those two kids have done for this team. And I wanted Cooper DeJean in the draft. I can't believe they got him. I didn't know anything about Quinyon Mitchell, but I knew Cooper DeJean could play.
Well, I didn't know anything about Quignon either. And even when I was with my buddy watching the draft and we drafted him, I'm like, Toledo? Really?
Yeah.
Toledo?
Yeah.
And he's
Yeah.
like, no. He's like, don't shirk him. He's gonna
Yeah.
be the truth. I'm like, okay, but I have to I have to see it to believe it. Like,
Well, here's
and-
the other thing too, Joe. With Quinyon Mitchell, it's like obviously he went to a small school, but this is probably going back to like even like a Harold Carmichael, going back when he went to a small school back in the 70s.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not trying to compare.
Wilbur Montgomery. Wilbur Montgomery went to
yeah.
Abilene Christian. He
Yep.
was a 6th round draft pick, and the first season and a half with the Eagles, all he did was return punts.
Yeah,
You know,
Right.
I mean, punts and kickoffs. That's all he did, and then he turned into one of the greatest backs the Eagles have ever had.
absolutely.
You know,
I'm going to turn to you, James. So, do you think at this point the Eagles have exceeded your expectations for this season?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the one thing I was really intrigued about the last couple of weeks is that, I mean, since we went out on the air for a while, because like, we never discussed like Saquon Barkley's success, and kind of feels like we missed a lot of shows, obviously, but obviously I had personal reasons and all that other stuff.
Yes.
But it makes me feel good to be an Eagles fan because I really do like the two presents on the field. That it's kind of like they're like basically Christmas gifts, like to say the least. Because like you got Saquon Barkley, who is a running back machine, who just is like
he's having a Christian McCaffrey effect.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think the
I
one
said
thing
that when they signed him.
Yeah, and I think the other thing too is that all these years when he was with the Giants, I mean, he never was fully successful until he got here, and now you got Stellan University right beside him. Like that's even more better, and even the defense. I mean, okay, first,
all you need to know about it, James, is yards to contact.
Sure.
When he was with the Giants, his yards to contact were like 1.6.
Yeah.
So that means he's getting hit right at the line. He's not getting the second level. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And now his average yards to contact are like 2.8, which means he's past the line of scrimmage. He's dealing with either a linebacker or a safety, and God help you. You know?
Right.
And I like that. That's the other part of this is like when I first talked about Saquon, when we first talked about him, I was like, okay, finesse backs don't really hold up. And then I'm like, he's not a power back. I wanted Derrick Henry. I wasn't completely wrong with Derrick Henry. He's killing it too. But the idea that Saquon brings this power, and I'm just like, wait, he's running through folks? I'm like, okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I'll tell you, it had a lot to do with the way the Giants were constructed.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they kept trying to draft offensive linemen, and they kept shooting and missing.
Yeah.
You know, they really blew it with Saquon. They should not have drafted him to begin with.
Well,
they should have taken Allen, the quarterback in Buffalo, to rebuild their franchise.
Yeah. I mean,
and instead they took Saquon. And
the problem is that you could tell with the Giants organization, that the prime example is what happened about a week and a half ago with the release of Daniel Jones.
Yeah.
They just don't know. They have messed up the draft for the last couple of years, and now they're
It's like
figuring
for the
out.
last 6 years going back to Daniel Jones.
Yeah,
All right, you'll
they've
know.
been
I'm going to
sputtering.
tell you something. Oh, here's. I'm looking into my prognostication thing here, Joe, and you'll know the Giants are starting to think right because they're going to have like the first pick in the draft. They're going to be number one if they trade that pick. If they trade that pick to say the Raiders, right, and move down to the 6th spot, they're going to get a boatload of leverage.
Yeah.
To go after Manning the next year.
That's going to be interesting because they love their Mannings. You know,
Yeah,
like,
well, I
so,
mean, this kid,
Yeah, they do.
that kid can play. That kid can
Yeah.
play.
He could play.
Yeah.
You can't play. That's true.
But
So-
Dion's boy is perfectly made for the Raiders. That kid will fit in like a glove there.
yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
I mean, even yesterday, seeing Brock Bowers like with them, it's like you got to if you give them a good quarterback, like maybe the Raiders.
Yeah, they're gonna be trouble. They're gonna be trouble for that division if that kid goes there. If Shador goes there, that's gonna be big news.
Yeah.
So I would say the Eagles have exceeded my expectations for this season because, you know, being where they are, and look, the litmus test. This is the game tomorrow, and we'll get into it more in a minute. The game tomorrow has been the game that I've been circled on the calendar for a while because I said from the very beginning that that's going to be the litmus test of what they are going to be capable of doing for the playoffs and going forward. But what this defense has shown me, and now I'm going to turn into Pat Bernard. What this defense has shown me is thank you. I finally have my linebackers. I finally have them, and I am not letting them go.
Well, they better sign him. They better sign Braun.
I swear that all is holy. I will sit outside of Howie Roseman's office until they re-sign Zach Bond going, you are not letting go of my linebackers.
If they do it now, they can get them cheap.
I understand. And look, these guys, we've been aching for these guys. And let me just make something clear. There was something I brought up to James the other day. They have Zach Bond and Nakobe Dean, which is great. But you also have someone that is waiting in the wings that's also a young talent that I feel like when given snaps, you are going to explode. And that's Jeremiah Trotter Jr. And that guy is going to just be shot out of a cannon. And when you combine those linebackers with that defensive line, with that secondary, it just blows my mind. The fact that these guys have been the number one defense in the league. Say it again. Number one defense in the league.
Yeah.
Thank you. I've been begging for these linebackers for years. And Frank has always said, you're not going to get them. You're not going to. I got them, damn it. And thank you.
You know, I mean, they had it last year with Edwards, and they let him go. Okay. And I mean,
2 years ago with Edwards.
Right. It's discouraging. It was discouraging to see the Eagles let go of linebacking talent like that. On your Jay Trotter Jr. Prediction, you won't see that next year. Because Trot needs to put some weight on.
Yeah.
He really needs to put some weight on. And I mean, as much as we all love Trotter, that kid's not ready for prime time yet. However, he's got the skills and the ability to do it. He just needs a little more seasoning. He's not. I mean, look how long it took Nakobe Dean to really start shining.
Yep.
Right.
It took him 3 seasons. Okay. It's going to take Trotter Jr. just as much. That's why they should sign Zach Braun to like a 3-year contract and give him a nice piece of change. My biggest worry with the Eagles is that they don't have an edge guy that can fill into BG's role. And boy, that was crushing. That injury is just crushing.
It is. It's
crushing on more than one level. It's crushing to the team because they don't have that guy on the edge that they really need, who's a veteran. They don't have that moral leadership on the field that they had with him, and as a fan base, it was painful to hear the interviews that he did this week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some of which he was crying in.
Yeah.
BG has been such a part of this organization for so long, and he's gone through the ups and downs. He was doubted at the beginning, and then he earned our respect, and then he won a Super Bowl, and he came back and gave us. He says, "I'm going to give him one more year," and we were thrilled about that. When Fletch was retiring and when Kelsey was retiring, we had one of those guys left. We had one of the core four left, and we're like, "This is awesome." And then to watch the season end this way is really, really heartbreaking for the fan base and for me. But they're going to have to replace that edge guy.
Well, there's talks about it, and
Yeah.
we'll break it down. So, like, would you bring it? So, Jalex Hunt's an interesting prospect because, and that's what it is. He's a prospect. Whether or not he can pan out quickly enough, that'll be up to him. But there are options out there like a JPP. I'm not sure
done.
if you bring in someone else.
He's not. Let me tell you something. Fangio had him in Miami. If he had anything left, Fangio would have had him back here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
I got to believe JPP's out of gas.
Yeah.
Yeah. I believe so too.
I would agree with that. And so this is where I hold the one criticism for Howie Roseman this year. And that is that he didn't go in hard enough for the guy that got traded, the defensive end that got traded to the Lions from the Browns.
Yeah.
Because I feel like he didn't have to give up a lot to get that guy, and he already needed to replace Bryce Huff. So now you would have had that guy that would have stepped into the BG role right away and maybe had talent. Now you're scrambling, but here's my thing. There's got to my imagination for this is that these guys, like this goes back to baseball. I know that the game, you don't have to say it, Frank. I know the game's not played this way, but I still have a problem with these players being kind of told, okay, you're only going to play 40% of the snaps. Okay, you're hired to do a job.
Yeah.
You do the job. You either come in to do the job or you don't. And I'm sorry. I've been taught that and raised that throughout my life.
Yeah, I don't like the way they do it now, Joe, but this is the animal that it is, and it's a lot of this is of course going back to what it is. It's money driven, that if they play a guy like, Carter, you're going to know that they're desperate to fill the need when they move Carter around on the line. If they start to move Carter around the line and take him out of the middle, then you know that what they have is not adequate enough.
Right.
And I don't think it is. I don't think what they have is adequate enough. It's either not adequate enough or too young.
Right.
And the good thing about this is the Eagles' back seven is the best back seven they've had in probably 15 years.
Yep.
So I'm not worried about it because they have guys who are answering the call. The defensive, they have bought into Vic Fangio's defensive system. The whole team has. And people are saying, you know what? The Eagles got to this position last year and fell on their face. This is a different animal. The Eagles are going to the Super Bowl, boys. I don't know whether you're.
Yeah, man. I'm having that feeling again, man.
Okay.
The Eagles are going to the Super Bowl, and it doesn't matter whether they play Detroit here or Detroit in Detroit. Detroit cannot play with this team.
No.
Okay. I like how all that sounds. And if you like how all that sounds, give Hardcore Sports Network a follow on YouTube and follow us also on Facebook at Hardcore Sports Network. But if you are looking to get maybe a gift for that Eagles sports fan, maybe the new Saquon jersey or a Quinyon Mitchell jersey, check out our new sponsor, rallyhouse.com. Scan that QR code. It'll take you right to the Philadelphia Eagles page, and you could go and purchase it in no time. Get yourself ready for the playoffs and, as Frank Finnegan said, the Super Bowl by scanning that QR code today and getting that Eagles fan exactly what they want with a new jersey or apparel to root the Eagles on all the way to New Orleans. So here's what I have to ask. We talked about Saquon. We've talked about the defense. We haven't talked about number one. And so I have to ask, because everyone that I have heard is making this guy seem like he's just an average quarterback.
Okay.
And I want someone, and both of you know that I have been this guy's biggest cheerleader for the longest time.
Right.
So I need someone to tell me what these people are seeing and what's real. Because Frank, do you think Jalen Hurts is a top 5 quarterback in the league right now?
Well, I'm gonna tell you. At the beginning of the season, when those first 4 games, I came away from those first 4 games convinced he's not, and it's because he did a lot of hero ball play, and he was getting sacked, and he was turning balls over, but the team, like the defense, after that bye week, has done a fundamental change, and you can tell that there's one thing you can tell that the team has made a fundamental change with, and the quarterback is reflective of this, is how many times in the last 4 weeks, 5 weeks, has Jalen Hurts thrown the ball away instead of taking a sack? Okay.
Yeah, he's done that a lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
This wasn't happening. This wasn't happening in the first 4 weeks. Okay. Jalen Hurts is throwing the ball away instead of eating a sack, and he's not turning the ball over because he doesn't have to anymore. He's got a dynamic running back with one of the best offensive lines in football that are opening up crater-sized holes for him to run through. And when the hole doesn't exist, this guy sidesteps on a dime and makes people swing at air. You know, I mean, it's he doesn't have to be what he was. He doesn't have to be the hero anymore. So he's not. You know, what he is an uber dangerous game manager now, because he doesn't have to be the game manager who just stands back there and 3-step drop, throws the ball away, either takes the completion or throws the ball out of bounds. He's the game manager that, if the line opens because they've double teamed somebody and they're worried about Saquon, now this guy can get you 15 yards. You know, and he's not doing it because he has to. He's like, okay, I can take that. Boom, and he goes. That's killer. That's Mahomes-like. You know, now I'm not comparing him to Mahomes.
Wow.
But Mahomes only runs when he absolutely has to.
Right.
Okay. And I think you're seeing an evolution in Hurts that could propel him to be a perennial top 5 quarterback. Right now, he's playing top 5 football, but the team is also playing top 5 football.
Yeah.
As a whole, defensively, offensively, special teams, every aspect of this team is different than it was last year, and the attitude is completely different than it was last year. And I gotta believe it's completely reflective of the offensive and defensive coordinators that they brought in.
So before I go to you, James, about this, I'm going to say this. You're absolutely right about the fact that this team is playing at a top 5 level, both offensively and defensively. The one thing that I think gets kind of buried or lost in all of it is that it feels like Jalen gets indicted or blamed, or even Nick Sirianni gets blamed because there's talent around this team. And it's like, no, but iron's supposed to sharpen iron. And if it wouldn't matter if you had all this talent if you can't do anything with it. The Sixers are a prime example of that. You can have all that talent and do nothing with it, or you can have all that talent and thrive because each one feeds off of the other. And so Jalen isn't just doing it like you said. In the first 4 weeks, he felt like he had to play hero ball. And I think at some point the team came together and said, no, Jalen, this isn't all on you. Let us have your back. Let us help you. Let us, you don't have to be that guy. and look, there's nothing to say, nothing to diminish Jalen Hurts' talent,
Right.
because he takes a sidestep to have his team surround him and face that every Sunday. So I don't think you can indict the coach. I don't think you can indict the quarterback because there's talent around this team. Now, James,
Mhm.
do you think Jalen Hurts is a top 5 quarterback in the NFL right now?
No question, Joe. I think that's the thing. You know what? You know what amazes me about Jalen Hurts too is that early on in the season, even Frank alluded to it, that like he had like he tried to play hero ball and try to be the best he could be, but now he just does his job like how
Yep.
he kind of has the same circumstance that he had back in 2022 when he had that MVP kind of season. I mean,
Right.
the one thing I'm really was really impressed about the last few weeks is just that like that fire that he like just not trying to do too much and trying to be the quarterback that we want him to be. Like this is something. I mean, sure. I mean, he takes sacks when like that are crucial sometimes, but I mean, yeah. I mean, sometimes it's a little bit of a head scratcher, but he's not turning the ball over. I mean, everybody's been talking about that, but that's a part of the game. I mean, if you're turning the ball over, if you're not turning the ball over, like that, you're doing something right there, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Absolutely right. Absolutely. If you and I mean he has stopped his turnovers. He's
Yeah.
absolutely stopped his turnovers.
Yep.
And
So-
so I also want to say this because this is a part that I've heard from from a certain radio personality on a major radio sports network. And I've kind of gotten sick and tired of this stat getting kind of thrown out there, and that is turnover worthy plays. You know what a turnover worthy play and
Oh,
what
God.
that really is at its core? An incomplete pass.
Yeah.
Let's
Well,
stop
an
with
incomplete
that.
pass. I mean, what the
That's
hell
all
is
it
that?
is.
What the
Like,
hell is that?
let's
Who came? This is a new term to me. Who came up with this term?
Yeah.
Pro Football Focus, and there's somebody on a 3-letter sports radio.
So what? So wait. Let me get this straight. He is rating an incomplete pass as this should have been an interception.
So say Jalen Hurts throws it and the receiver does not catch it, but the defender was close enough that he could have picked it off, but
Right.
didn't. That is a turnover worthy play.
Oh my God.
That's
But
it's an
ridiculous.
incomplete
That's
pass.
ridiculous.
It's an
sorry.
incomplete pass.
That's
So they've they're looking at another way to diminish a guy, is what you're saying.
Yes.
Right.
They're looking at another way to tear down a quarterback.
So we can call them pro football unfocused.
Well, yes, clearly.
Right.
They're
Or
nerds.
uber focused.
They're nerds.
Yeah. Right.
They're nerds that watch a football game through a spreadsheet, not through like the actual game. Sorry, but when you go onto ESPN or any of those websites that give you that little graphic, you can't watch the football game that way, gentlemen. You have to watch it, as Frank Finnegan would say, with your eyes, and in my case, with your ears.
Right.
But
Well, let me, Joe.
Go ahead.
You know who the source was that brought this up? Was it like Chris Sims or Dan Orlowski?
It's a guy I like to nickname Thumbtack, Spike Eskin.
Oh my God!
Right.
So
and of course he's always right because his name is Eskin.
Well, I call him Thumbtack because his takes are as dull as a thumbtack. So, here's the thing: this is a guy that just sits there and says, "I'm a contrarian, so I'm going to argue." But you have to make sense with what you argue.
That's how
he should go back to music.
His dad was always a contrarian. It's always easy to pick the loser.
Yeah.
You know, because there's only one winner in every sport, and it's the team that's standing at the end with the trophy.
Exactly.
So you have 28, 29, 30 other choices that you can go, yeah, they're the loser. I mean, it's too easy to do, and it's too easy to, I mean, sometimes Spike Eskin says things that drive me nuts because he's just got this take that's, and then he argues his position like I can't be wrong. There's no way I can be wrong.
That's why I'm calling
like father,
him.
like son.
That's
Yeah.
why I'm calling him Thumbtack, because the
Yeah.
spike is sharp and he's not sharp. He's as dull as a thumbtack.
But I mean,
Right.
I'm
Yeah.
looking at this. I'm looking at this Eagles team, and I'm seeing something that, you know, I saw it in 17 when they were playing. They have a different attitude. They have a different
Yes.
feel. They have a different vibe. And the quarterback is doing the things that he is supposed to do
Mhm.
that he wasn't doing in the first 4 games. And he's been doing it for 7 weeks now. And this doesn't mean it's a fluke. It means this is a trend.
Right.
What he's doing is a trend. And
Right.
they finally sunk it into his head. This is what you have to do to win. And oh, gee, by the way, you're winning. You know?
Yeah.
You know, so
Well, what a novel concept. If you
yeah,
do
well,
this,
the offensive lineman, from what I understand from what Mailata said this week, the offensive lineman went to Sirianni and said, look,
Yep.
we got this guy that just runs through everything. And you've
Mhm.
got the guys to block for him. Let us do it.
Yeah.
And he's
So-
letting them do it.
So the
Right.
story was during the bye week, Mailata, Landon Dickerson, and Lane Johnson all went to Nick Sirianni together and said, "Why aren't we running the ball if we just got like one of the best running backs in the league?"
Hmm.
And Nick's like, "Well, we want to bounce." He's like, "No. You have all of us. Let us eat. Let us handle it. Let
Mm.
us do it. We're hungry. And you're keeping us starving because you want to pass the ball. Let us eat. Let us make Saquon the biggest threat in the NFL right now."
And then you'll be
Nick's
able to
like,
throw all you want.
right.
Yep.
And Nick's
Yep.
like, "All right, whatever. Let them out. Let the dogs eat."
Let the dogs eat.
Yep. And
Yep.
so, it goes
Well,
back to,
To quote
something that-
Erock, angry dogs bite harder, like he said early on in this
Yes.
season.
And when you have a starving dog, you know what happens. It turns into Jason Kelsey at the parade.
You know
Yeah.
it, brother.
So this is what the next question goes to this. Frank talks about the path to the Super Bowl, and that's where we're on. We're on the path to the Super Bowl.
Right.
So do the Eagles need to be the number 1 seed to get there? Frank, I'll go to you.
They don't need to be. I think. I mean, if you just look at the way the Eagles play on the road this year, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You know, 2 things travel in football: your defense and your running game.
Oh,
And-
and we happen to be good at both.
Right.
Oh.
So now that being said, look, Detroit's got a really good team.
Yeah. They do.
But their defense, since if they don't have Aiden Hutchinson playing against the Eagles, they're beatable.
Yeah.
And I just think that, I mean, now we lost Graham, but Graham isn't Hutchinson. I mean, Graham's a great player, but he's not Hutchinson.
Right.
And the Eagles just have to be able to find a guy to turn that on. I mean, like this is gonna be a moment for whoever they're going to get to fill in those third down plays.
Yeah.
The kid they got from Washington, or the kid that was on the waiver wire, was played with both Washington and Dallas. I mean, I don't know how much he's going to be able to contribute. But this is the only thing the Eagles need next year, guys. Is edge.
Mhm.
It's the only thing they need.
I would say the other one is the heir apparent for Lane Johnson.
Yes. Well, that's not a dire need, because Lane said he's going to play 3 more years.
Right.
But no, what they need this year in the draft, in the offseason, they have to find a way to get an edge. Be that the edge rusher from the Raiders. They might be able to make a trade for him. They might be able to make a trade for that wonder kid up in Cleveland, Gates. I'd love to see him down here. I mean, that would be, man, put him on the line with Carter. You're done.
Yeah, right.
You can
Right.
mail it in. And he's available. He's available.
You also have somebody that wants out of Big D. And,
yeah, but
that could be
they're not going to trade him to the Eagles. There's no
No,
way they're going to trade him.
He's a free agent after this
No,
year.
he's not. He's got 1 more year left.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see, because that the
yeah,
Jerry World's burning to the ground as we speak. So
it's funny. It's funny to watch. It's very funny to watch.
it's
Did you
actually
hear
kind of
Did you
entertaining.
hear what he said about Mike McCarthy this week?
Yes.
No, I didn't see it.
You would think that Jerry's going to fire Mike McCarthy. That's not going to happen.
No.
No. He loves Mike McCarthy because Mike McCarthy's a Super Bowl winning coach. Got to have him. Are you kidding me?
That Super Bowl was like over.
I mean, thank you,
ago.
Jerry. Thank you, Jerry. I mean,
yes, thank you, Jerry.
You keep Mike McCarthy. We're good with that.
If he could stay owner of the Cowboys for all my life, I'll be happy.
Well, he is. He's not. I mean, unless he sells his team to Saudis for $9 billion, he's not leaving.
Right.
But that's what he wants to do. He wants to. I mean, he wants to get $9 billion for his team. That's what it's worth.
Right.
You know, if he gets $9 billion, it's going to be to a set because ain't no American can buy that.
No.
Someone's got to tell me, even if he were to get that, all right. He's like 70 plus years old.
Mm-hmm.
What the hell are you going to do with $90 billion? For the rest
but
of your life?
Joe, to a guy like that, it's never enough. I mean, look at Elon Musk. Look at Bill Gates. Look at. I mean, you can say to them, how many yachts do you need? And they would say, well, how many ports are there in the world that can support yachts?
It's
true. I mean, that's exactly the way they think. It's not, they don't think on our terms. We're just worried about the next, steak we can have for dinner. They're worried about the next,
the next billion,
5,000 heads of cattle they can buy to provide those steaks.
I'm good with steak. That you got me hungry now. Let's get down to the brass tacks of tomorrow's game. Probably the best game of the season and the best game for this weekend, especially the Baltimore Ravens and the Philadelphia Eagles. You got MVP candidates up and down the field on both sides of the ball between Derrick Henry, Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, and Saquon Barkley. This is going to be a battle of who gives in first. What defense gives up the most and what offense is willing to take the most chances. So I'm going to go to you first, James. What's your prediction for this week's game and your breakdown of how you think it's going to go down?
Well, I'll tell you this much. This might be one of the funnest games of the years to ever. I could ever remember, probably going back to 2022 when I watched a lot of good games that year. For me, I think it's the same thing like we talked about it, like always, like obviously Saquon just being loose. For me, I actually see the Eagles winning tomorrow. I think it's going to be like the shock of the day. I think the Eagles, like even like Baltimore, like the last couple of times, like when they faced opponents, I mean, they basically let Lamar Jackson be the hero, and they basically I think a couple of weeks ago they didn't let Derrick Henry ever play in that fourth quarter, and I can't think it was against Pittsburgh around a couple of weeks ago. But for me, I gotta say right now, the Eagles have the hot hand. I mean, once they're hot right now, it's gonna be the one thing I was really intrigued about last week, how they were talking about, the Rams defense is gonna be a barn burner for Saquon, and then he got loose in that second half, and then the floodgates started to happen, and everything after that was like everything. It was like that was all she wrote basically. So for me, I got the Eagles win tomorrow. I was going to say if it was going to be close, but I don't think it will be. I think it's going to be 34-20 Birds in Baltimore tomorrow.
Okay. Frank Finnegan, your breakdown and your prediction for tomorrow's game.
Okay. Two things have to happen. And they cannot let Lamar Jackson out of the pocket.
Mm-hmm.
They cannot. They have to maintain really good discipline from their edge rushers to not go around and open up those sides. Because if they do, he's going to go crazy.
Right.
Okay. So they got to keep him contained. If they can keep him contained like they did last week and like they did against Washington, they're going to win this game because Derrick Henry is not a cutback runner.
Mm-hmm.
He's straight up he's north and south. The unfortunate thing is he's built like a D9 bulldozer, and I mean he just kills people, which leaves me a little concerned about the little underweight in Kobe Dean because I mean Derek could kill him if he hits him in the open field. He's going to need help. Luckily, we have some big bodies on the defensive line that can slow him down. They're just as good against the run as we are.
Mm-hmm.
As a matter of fact, they're better. I think we have the 5th rated run defense in the league, but they are number 1. So Saquon's going to have his work cut out for him. I think this game is going to come down to whoever has the ball last wins the game, and I think the Eagles will win the game 24-20.
Nice.
Ooh, okay. So here's the thing. This is a game that in the preseason I had this as a loss for the Eagles.
Yeah, I
And
did too.
As the
I,
wife.
I feel like though that the Eagles can maybe make this a toss up in some ways, and it's mainly because of the hot streak they've been on. I honestly think that this team, the Eagles, are gonna go in and their defense. Look, Fangio puts it on the board, 16 points for the defense. That's their goal, under 16 points.
Right.
So if the defense can still hold that line, this offense is going to put up more than 16 points on that Baltimore defense, because that Baltimore defense is not as stout as some
As it used to
people
be. Right.
as it used to be.
Right.
So there is a chink in the armor. So I agree with Frank in saying that Lamar has to be contained in the pocket. That's easier said than done.
Right.
But
Got to be
here's
disciplined.
Right. Here's the thing is that if they are capable of keeping Lamar stymied, he's a person that gets easily frustrated if the game starts to get away from him.
Right.
That was proof of last year in the playoffs against Kansas City. When
Right.
that game started to kind of get away from him, the Ravens got very ugly with how they started to play and really messy with how they were starting to execute. So my feeling is the Eagles will pull off a victory. Now the Ravens have only had in the last 3 games have only had a differential of 4 total points in the last 3 games.
Yeah.
I am saying that the Eagles are going to pull that 4-point victory off, and similar to what Frank Finnegan is saying, but instead of it being 24-20, I am predicting 20-17
Oh.
with a possible 24-point possibility for the Eagles. So I feel like it could be, I'm going to say 2017 Birds, but I feel like they could put that 24-20 up too, Frank. I'm right there between the 3 and the
Right.
4-point
Yeah, I don't.
differential.
It's not going to be a blowout. It's not.
No.
And nobody. This game's going to come down to who whose defense can take the pounding the most.
Yes.
That's what it's
And
going
who
to come
can
down
hold
to.
up? And
Yeah.
who can hold up?
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
if you are looking for tickets for tomorrow's game and you want to make your way down to Baltimore and root the Eagles on, and you still don't have tickets, and you go, Joe, how do I get tickets? Well, scan the QR code on your screen right now. Our next great sponsor here at the Pattison Ave Sports Show is the Ticket Network. And that QR code will take you right to the Philadelphia Eagles page, where you can easily purchase your Philadelphia Eagles tickets for this tomorrow's game or for any other game going forward. Maybe you want to get a ticket for that person you love and put it as a stocking stuffer. Maybe you want to get your tickets ready for the Super Bowl. Here's the great thing about Ticket Network. They're not just a regular ticketing website. They give you options to pay. You've heard of layaway? They have it. You can get credit so that way you can put in payments down to pay for a ticket that you want the most. You want to sit in the front row? Do it. Finance yourself. They have finance options for anyone and everyone. Ticketnetwork.com is the place to go get your tickets today. Make sure that you make the next experience your experience with ticketnetwork.com. Scan that QR code and get your tickets for the Philadelphia Eagles and any other sporting event today.
All right. So
Uh,
Joe,
before we go any further, Michkowski checks in against us. Sirianni must take the points anyway, necessary. That's the most important thing too.
yeah,
Go ahead,
absolutely.
Frank. Go ahead,
All
Frank.
right. So before we go, and I know we're getting close to that time, we have to give a couple minutes here to the Phillies.
Sure.
The floor is yours.
Middleton is playing chess, and everybody else, when it comes to Soto, is playing checkers.
Mm-hmm.
Phillies are the only major team that has not had a meeting with Soto yet, but they are scheduled to talk to him. But they are waiting until every other team has made an offer, and so far the biggest offer on the table is $625 million. And I think when he comes to town, Middleton's not going to make an offer. He's going to say, "What's it going to take?" And he won't let him off. He won't let him leave the room. I think the Phillies are going to wind up with Juan Soto.
Mm.
You know, I mean, a lot of people are speculating that no way it's going to be them. It's going to be either the Mets, the Yankees, or the Dodgers. Boston put a considerable offer on the table.
Yeah.
So I think Middleton has waited until everybody else has made their offer, because they said a month ago, I don't know if anybody remembers this, but Dombrowski said, we're not going to be playing ping pong here. He said, we're not going to be the guy he comes to get an offer and then take it to another team to beat the offer. They're not doing that. If Soto comes in to do that, they're going to end the talks and Soto won't sign. You know, I think when Middleton, and this is why I think Middleton positioned and Dombrowski positioned them to be the last team he talked to, because they're not going to let him leave the room. I don't think they're going to let him leave the room. I think it's going to be, I think they truly want him, and I think they're going to get him.
Mm.
So you think that this is a blank check kind of situation?
I think that Middleton isn't afraid to write the check. It's not about being a blank check. It's about winning it.
Right.
You know, I mean, imagine what kind of dynamic impression this will make on the Phillies lineup. It changes everything. You know, they'll definitely trade Bohm. They will definitely trade Castellanos. You know, I mean, those two guys are going to be gone. And I mean, as much as I like what Castellanos did this year, I'm sorry, but I'd rather have Soto in right field. And I would rather have a different third baseman who's not going to whine and cry when things don't go his way. I love Bohm, but Bohm doesn't have the makeup. He needs to grow up, and he's not going to do it here. He needs to be traded to realize that life is real, and then he'll realize what he is. And he's a great player, but he's got too much baby in him.
Gotcha.
He's got too much baby in him.
I think the daycare has gone to his head. Yeah, in some ways.
Well, you can't throw tantrums like he did in the playoffs and expect it to go unnoticed in Philadelphia.
Yeah,
it just doesn't happen here. You know, and I mean, unfortunately, the byproduct of that is he's going to have to go.
Now, the conversation with trading Alec Bohm has been bringing Alex Bregman in. The problem that I have with that is it seems like Alex Bregman is on the decline.
Okay. Yeah, and you know what, Joe? You'd be right. But you have to look at the way this team is constructed.
Right.
You know, there aren't the core of this team is all over 30. Okay. They are in win now mode. Okay. So you bring in a Soto and maybe you sign a Bregman or Adames, right? I would like Adames better than Bregman, to be honest.
I would too. I think
he's way more
better
flexible.
Fielder. I think
he's a better fielder, and he's way more flexible. And actually, he's been a better hitter the last 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
I would rather have Willie Adames, but I would love to get that pitcher crocheted. I really would.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people say they don't need it, but yeah, I think they do, because I think Ranger Suarez needs to go back into the bullpen and be what he is. He can't start him. He doesn't have the stamina to start.
Mm-hmm.
And
he ran out of gas. Am I right in saying that? He just ran out of gas?
Yes, he did. He ran out of gas.
He
ran out of gas. Whatever it is that he needs to do to be a long-term starting pitcher, he has not done it to get himself in that kind of shape. So put him back where he was most valuable, a tenacious bulldog left-hander out of the bullpen. And he could
be a long reliever.
He could be a short reliever too.
Yeah.
Because he's a bulldog. You know, and when he's rested, his control is pinpoint. You don't have to be fast if you're pinpoint.
See,
I mean,
now
now Greg Maddox proved that. He never threw anything over 87 miles an hour.
Now, the one thing that I'm concerned about, and I agree with everything you're saying with the Phillies and everything like that. The one thing that I'm concerned about is the closer role. And I get it. I'm not saying we need to have like a named closer, but I just need to know who or whom, like more than one person,
Right,
we're putting in that position. Because I'm okay if it's more than one person, but
right.
I don't trust Estevez. And I don't know
Well,
if we're going to bring
Estevez isn't going to
Hoffman
be there.
back.
No, Hoffman's coming back.
Okay.
They're I mean, those two guys had Hoffman and dude with the long hair. I can't remember his name now.
Oh, Strom.
Strom. Hoffman and Strom are coming back. They were very reliable this year, and yes, they choked in the playoffs. Okay, but so did the Bats.
Yeah.
That was a total team choke. It wasn't just those two.
Right.
So I trust him. Estevez is not going to be here. He's going to be gone. They're not going to pay him. They're going to spend their money elsewhere, and I think they're going to spend their money on Soto, and I think they're going to spend their money on a third baseman, and I think you're going to see Bohm being traded. You might even see Suarez be traded. They might throw Crawford into the deal, which I'm really upset about, but it may take that to get it done because I really like this.
What would be your take if they brought Aiden Miller up?
Well, if they brought Soto in here, then I'd be okay with that.
Okay.
I would be okay with that because I mean they won't need his bat at the top of the lineup.
Right.
Their first 6 hitters their first 7 hitters would be set.
Yeah.
I mean, so they could put him at the bottom of the lineup and he could learn slow.
Yeah.
The kid's got potential. He can hit. He's just young.
Yeah, and that's why I'm like, okay, I could see if you want to move on from Alec Baum because you have this guy kind of in the wings.
To jump into his spot.
So
I would rather see Trey Turner playing second base.
Okay.
Because I think he's better suited for second base. But really, what they could do, if this is kind of crazy, but if they did this, I think it would work out better to put him in center field.
That's been the conversation piece.
You
Will you put him in center field?
Well, that's how he started out. He started out as an outfielder, and he can run like a deer.
Right.
So I'm not worried about that. I think he's just, to me, he's too lanky for shortstop. He plays that position too cool by half sometimes, and it costs him plays.
Right.
And I think you can't get away with that in the outfield. And guess what? You're paying him $300 million, dude. I need you in the outfield. You got to go play. You got to suck it up for the team and go play out there.
Call me crazy. So this is the way I could kind of view things.
They trade Crawford. That's what's going to happen.
So this is the way I could kind of view things. And maybe I'm crazy, but okay, your outfield looks like this: Soto, Turner, put Harper back in his place back out there. Okay. Infield, Aiden Miller.
Harper's never leaving first base.
What? Aiden Miller, Sosa, Stott, and Corey Clemens at first.
Cody Clemens.
No, that's not going to happen. Cody Clemens is a really good bench player. He's not an everyday guy, and Harper is never going back to the outfield. Harper now is your permanent first baseman for the next 8 years, and thank God.
So then you keep Nick in the outfield.
No, you don't have to keep Nick. You can find another outfielder.
We said that this year, and we got Austin Hayes.
Yeah,
so,
Austin Hayes is not a regular player. But if you got Soto, Soto goes to right field. Goes to right field. I would put Turner in center.
Yeah.
I would keep
Marsh
for left.
Okay.
And you're going to have to platoon him because he can't freaking hit left-handers, and that's okay. That's okay. Yes, I like Sosa at shortstop, Stott at second base. Harper's your first baseman.
And the
you
potential
put
for Aiden Miller or Willie Adamas at third.
right. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I can live with that.
Yeah.
And,
Now, if they sign Bregman, right,
yeah.
you'll see Miller in 2 years, and Bregman they'll trade.
Okay.
That's what'll happen. They sign Adamas, then they're going to work. They're going to put Miller at shortstop. They're going to work him out at shortstop. They're going to move him to shortstop.
I mean, here's the thing. I honestly think with Crawford and Miller, as much as they are good trading pieces,
Right.
I think the Phillies also see it as, man, if we have these guys like a Turner and a Harper and a Soto, and that's your core, you could build around that, especially if they're going to be here for a decade
Yeah.
or close to
I
a
just
decade.
I think they're very enamored with starting pitching,
Yeah.
and I think that's why they're going to trade for Crochet. That's why I
Yeah.
think they're going to. I mean that starting pitching would be on par with what the Dodgers have.
So there's
really
been
would.
another trade potential that Frank Finnegan once again called, I don't know, 8 months ago. And now people are all over this. And that is the Vladimir Guerrero trade to the Phillies.
Oh man,
And I'm
wow.
just like,
I would
Frank,
love that.
Frank Finnegan. I mean, we're gonna have to call you Buster Finnegan or something. Like we're so
Well, I mean, it's not hard to see. It makes sense. Vlad makes sense. I mean,
It
it's
does.
like I said, Joe. I'm a macro guy, not a micro guy.
Yeah.
I look down the road and I see things and go, this is what I think could happen. I mean, if it happens, then yeah, I'm clairvoyant. I called the Phillies in the World. I called the Phillies in the World Series. I said they were going to go to the World Series, and they did. And I didn't think they were going to win. I mean, I said the Eagles are going to win the Super Bowl this year, guys. We're parading down Broad Street this year.
I love
The Eagles
it.
are winning. Doesn't matter who
Frank,
they play.
Frank, here's the thing. I'm all for you being clairvoyant and everything, but then damn it, give us the Powerball number. Like, stop pussyfooting around. Like, let's get this done.
Okay, remember that comment I had about yachts a couple minutes ago? If I could figure out Powerball numbers, I would be doing my podcast from a yacht. Okay?
In the Bahamas with Charlie.
Right. That's right. So I'm not that good. I'm just talking about the sports market. It's yeah. The minute I see lottery numbers, I'll tell you after I hit the lottery, Joe, so you can hit the next one. Because I don't want to split it with anybody.
I'll say to you the same thing I say to any startup business that I want to invest in. I only need 1%. That's it.
Okay.
1%.
1%.
That's all you need.
Why do you need 1%? I'm going to give you the next winning number. You won't need one. You'll get 100.
Oh, that's true. But I'm not a greedy person, unlike Josh Harris.
I'm just trying to help you out, but I'll throw you a bone.
I got it. But we're gonna wrap it up for today. But I want to just say, first and foremost, I want to thank Frank Finnegan for coming on.
Thanks for having me. I love you guys.
I love you too, man.
Sharing his pearls of wisdom, his clairvoyance, and
all
of his.
Soto will be a Philly. You heard it here first.
I'm telling you now.
I will love it.
Fellas, people out there listening, you all should be excited because if Frank Finnegan says it, it becomes truth. So thank you once again, Frank, for being here.
Thanks.
I want to also thank my amazing producer, James Scorza, for putting everything together today.
You got it, brother.
You did an amazing job. I also want to thank our new home at HSN. And I'm not talking about the Home Shopping Network, folks. I'm talking about Hardcore Sports Network, the new place to get all your Philly sports and much more. You want to watch the Survivor Series, you want to hear play-by-play of certain football games on NFL Sunday, you want to get Flyers pregame and postgame reports, stay right here at Hardcore Sports Network because you will get all that and much, much more. This is where Philly is going to launch, and we are just getting started. So just like ECW, we do it hardcore, and we do it the best way we can. I want to thank Mitch Kofsky for welcoming us in. I want to thank all the sponsors, sportsmemorabilia.com, Rally House, and ticketnetwork.com. Go get your tickets today for tomorrow's game, or as Frank Finnegan said, that Super Bowl ticket to New
Super Bowl.
Orleans.
That's right. We're
Let's
going to
get
New
it.
Orleans. Going to the Big Easy.
So for Frank Finnegan, James Scorza, I'm Joe Marks. We are the Pattison Ave Sports
Happy holidays.
Show. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays,
and
guys.
we will see you next Saturday.
All right, guys.